I'd like to make a couple of announcements. Next week, or the end of this week actually, Friday, Keith Antar Mason is going to read at the Laguna Poets Friday night, 8 p.m. He is in an anthology of St. Louis Black poets. He's been on KPFK Poetry Connection program, and he's a winner of a Harvard Poetry Award. So he's probably pretty good. And I would suggest that if you want to hear poetry every Friday night, you go down to the Laguna Beach Public Library, the back door, and they have an open reading the last Friday of every month. Speaking of open reading, the Orange County Poets Goat Hill reading series, that's this, at the Good Earth, is going to have an open reading next month, the first Monday of the month, which will be September 7th. And anybody who has a poem or two, you got me. Just get ready, just sign up and read your poem. This is an experiment we've never done in the Goat Hill reading, and I hope we can maintain order. Anyway, so you're welcome to come to the... yeah, you don't want to get arrested. Has everybody written their lines? It should have images. It should be sort of self-contained. It should really be a shocker. You probably read it out loud, so it shouldn't be. Okay. Welcome to the Goat Hill reading. Our first poet tonight is going to... Oh, you want to gather this up? You want to gather this up? You want to read it, or shall I read it? It's up to me. You read it. I don't know. I have a hard time reading anything. The lens fell out today. If I keep glasses, the lens will fall out. The gathering. Anyway, wow, we're gathering up this. If you write it legibly, that'll help us too. Our first poet tonight is going to be Todd Mecklem. He is a 7th-generation Oregonian, but he moved to California 1 month ago. He was born in Portland in 1965. You're not old. I remember that you are. He's the founder, but here's a young man. But he is the founder of the Caracas publication, which publishes Thumbs Through magazine. Do they accept poetry submissions?
His address is on some of the flyers that have been around.
Oh, there's some flyers right here. I shouldn't lean on that. I think you do accept submissions of very good quality stuff. That's all you want to print, right?
Strange stuff.
Strange, goodness strange. Well, there's lots of good and strange stuff around. Okay. And these people are invited to submit to the publication. And they can help defray the cost too, right? Yes. Okay, I know about that. Thumbs Through magazine and various mini zines and chapbooks. Do you do real zines?
What's that?
Do you do real zines with any underground comic books? I have underground comic books out. Okay. Our first poet this evening is going to be Todd Mecklem. Let's welcome Todd.
tonight are collaborative works, which I wrote with Jonathan Falk. Jonathan is a resident of Gresham, Oregon. He's a student of the German language and literature, and his hobby is collecting pince-nez eyeglasses. As he cannot be here tonight, and in deference to his contribution to these works, I'm setting a photo of him right here. On the occasion that I read a poem that I wrote entirely myself, I'll kind of reach around and flop it over like that. I'm going to start off with two poems about Hermann Hesse, the German novelist. It's called Satzunganzer. One morning, an old man arose and went to his bedroom window. Immediately after he looked out, he saw none other than Hermann Hesse digging into the compost pile with his bare left hand. Hesse was pulling things resembling chess pieces from the hors d'oeuvre. These objects he was placing very carefully into a leather pouch at his feet. The old man's hair stood upright with fear, and he retreated to bed. For a few moments he struggled to make sense of what he had seen. Suddenly he lunged toward the large oaken chest that stood in a corner of the room. He raised the lid. Inside, something far worse awaited him. A soft paw, which seemingly had been torn from a large dog, lay in a pool of clear gelatin. The small revolver he had sought was gone. Without a word, he pocketed the paw, ignoring the slime soaking his coat, and walked out to the bright sunlight of the street. He was determined to confront Hesse, and all fear ran from his mind as he strode toward the garden gate. The damp wind blew toward his face. Dead stalks were crushed under his feet as he walked. As he rounded the corner of the house, Hesse seemed to sense his presence and stood up and faced the old man. The poet slapped his neck in a ritualistic gesture, and tears flowed from his eyes. The old man fell on his knees and pulled the paw from his coat pocket. Hesse approached him and took the paw, then walked out of the garden toward the street. After kneeling silently for a few moments, the old man stood up, collected the leather pouch, and then headed back into the house to bed. This is also about Hesse. It's called Pittsawella Falls, which means heat wave calamity. Hesse was standing, quietly watching the sunset from the porch of his house, deep in the hills of the Rhineland-Palatinate. The golden light seemed to pour into his eyes. The fields around it shimmered as though sheets of molten glass were rolling down around him. He quickly sat down as waves of thick light washed over him, everything dropping away in a chorus of color and sound. Crystalline spheres dancing, colliding, shards of pure light piercing and shattering all. This is prompt pen. We give German titles to a lot of our collaborations. A Sumatran woman, holding a tube of clay and pebbles up near her face, was standing motionless and impassive before the wood door. Her hands were stained from years of rolling pigskins, and her eyes were like those of a child. Yet her face was old, and the years set deep in her strong arms. The light of the setting moon barely reached through the forest bordering the far edge of the field, touching her flat, gray cheeks, while echoes of cicadas floated into her round, blast-to-seal-like ears. As darkness seemed to cover the surrounding countryside even more deeply, she stirred. Like a lion, she began digging into a slight protuberance in the earth near her broad feet. She dug on as the Nyarlathotep beak dawn appeared. until the stiff green islets of buried copper came into view, crystalline fire fluctuating like a donkey's hoof, ascending on a straight cord in the Escorial at 5 Orange. At last she had found the entrance to the red world. Kind of switch off here for a while. Entendre with the sugar cube. Wild in silk, a woman in wanton fancy. The beat goes dancing, heaven's harlot, imagining the Krika you die for. The ships of heaven's merchant marine carry Polish girls pulled from the pit. Mr. Sugar is at the wheel. Hornblower pulls Barbara to his breast. The beast is vanquished. No longer will he lord it over the hosts of the dead. That will be the function of another. Fair Jesus is the ruler of hell. Most of the rest are collaborations, so I won't keep doing this. The eyes of Dr. D. A voice came to me from a gathering of spirits that was hovering above my cold, brass-cornered bed. At first I could not tell which of those souls had spoken, and I shrieked out into the dark. Dr. D stepped forward, his jaw still tied up, farthings falling back into his eye sockets. The spirit cloud faded as he manifested, the cluster becoming an ashen blue-black mist, the color of a bruise, and then simply melted into the ceiling. I turned full toward the horrific, coin-adorned apparition, and as my gaze met the sepulchral face, it began to speak. Ye stiff-necked and uncircumcised in heart and ears, look hither! And before me, the flaking plaster of my room's walls trembled and fell asunder, and within were the sights that drove Christ on gladly to cry, Eli, Eli! The fingers of the hand that signed the Omo Dea, vapors and conjointed waters, the death watches lighting the skies, the remnants of Dr. D hacking mesmeric blood, and my bed shaking like a leaf. Hand-grenade catastrophe. I remember that beer. I remember that insect. I remember the guillotines of old Austria in rows on the outside of Gregor Samsa's apartment. His blood's hot eyes rolled lazily in circles, trying to follow the machinations of a group of peasants, hoisting magical deformities toward the summit of the building. I say, dear Watson, said Samsa to himself, what's all this then now? His eyes twinkled behind oval, gold-framed eyeglasses, and his front legs scratched at the dirty window of his room. At this moment, a horde of vermin appeared and entered the room and hid behind the gray-black, overstuffed chair that was badly in need of reupholstering in the corner. Samsa noticed nothing at first, but gradually perceived movements at the edge of his eye. Dragging his lame left side, with its oily white shell pierced by a brown apple, he made his way over to the chair. His claw was ready to strike out at the rats, roaches, and fleas that were dancing before him. Then everything began to change, and he recognized his good friend Dr. Scheffler. Something about the doctor's small black eyes still reminded him of damp, shiny insects pouring down through unmentionable garbage. The doctor was balding and wearing a white coat. He said, "Let me see that apple, Gregor." At this moment, the building collapsed, and the Treaty of Versailles became, finally, the law of the land. found the first poem that me and John ever wrote. This was about 9 months ago, 10 months ago. And it kind of seemed to work, and it really set us off on our collaboration, and it's kind of the origin of all our more recent poems. It's called Lead Standard Augenblick. It basically short-circuits the thoughts to enter the fruit-laden halls of three cold people like plank idols. They hollowed out these passages with spoons, forcing the bulging eyes of Guinea taboo Sartre out of warm sockets and into thin baskets filled with sand. Screaming bacon chicken spiral black blood pours from the cracks in the baskets as the eyes of lichen jerk from cracks in attic stone thighs dance wildly, spin about searching for light, looking for a giant who is infinitesimal, walking through stucco forests, wet fields of corn covering the ancient stigmata of German nuns' eyes, eyes that weather all. The dingo stalks among the germinating deathweed, germinating its breathy laughter. It is not every day that one dances wildly around a deer skull, bearing a smooth antler in hand, erratic visions of sleek bucks cresting bright, densely forested ridges. But this is a typical image which subjects have visualized. Few can withstand the operation. The implantation of lanternfish tissue deep within the optic nerves, but the night lights up like a torn retina suspended above a searchlight. First I scratched my legs, then stung them with damn nettles. The neighbor has elephantiasis. No one knows if he has been to the tropics, but his legs alternately swell at the thighs and appear normal again. Die Frau nach der Mann 16. We wrote this on a balcony at our college, looking out over the expanse of the Cascades in Oregon. And I had been painting a painting of a face, which I considered the face of Mary. The bright blue eyes of Mary, the Queen of Heaven, stared into mine. Cursive writing in red and blue surrounded her detached face. Not wanting to spell things out too clearly, I applied the crushed bits of tin gingerly, conservatively. It's starting, I said. Starting what? Oh, whatever that thing is, that grater or lawn thing. I turned back to my paints, but the tube of cobalt blue was now missing. And I stared drunkenly, trying to fathom the pattern behind the disjointed events. The clouds above me stepped into the distance, radiating toward Larch Mountain and the Cascades. I tightened the bar on my easel and began painting white over everything except the eyes of the mother of all things, eyes that burned into me and held me always suspended here, the eyes of Mary. Found another one I wrote myself. I wrote it in a letter to John, actually. We kind of miss each other because we're not nearly as prolific when we're apart. We kind of help each other along. Der Faustkinder. Birds fall, frozen mollusks rain down from the heavens torrential, the blood and lips and French lime eating frenzies of rabid peccaries. I don't know what they're trying to do. It worries me sometimes, but I'm learning to trust them. I'll turn aside, spend my hours dusting the owls, the eagle my grandfather caught, and drinking sherry and aquavit. Thank you. Let's see. We wrote this one on Ash Wednesday this year. It's titled Asher Mittwochs Wishenspiel, which is German for Ash Wednesday Interlude. We wrote it in his dirty, crowded room filled with books, and here's how it goes. In the long lake with the lifeguard holding up flippers, announcing a race like Kuben's etchings, smiles of a lusty corpse, enormous candles streaming over drowned liches. Vagabond wandering over a bridge between the furnace blasts. Finally reaching an eastern balcony, he saw the mark of the lycanthrope, a skew cross in sweaty pit, vultures floating outward with vials of patent medicines, acidic and boiling hot. The nests are in old, broken towers, surrounded by marble curves peeling like lungs. Der Mohammedaner. His people were seafarers, Vikings, I believe. They hollowed out these passages in soft limestone long ago, revealing nitro-choked mouths beneath sullen maples soaked with brine, piercing eye-like anemones with sharp seed capsules. Blood-drenched muslin skin slips were found floating in boat by reedy isle. Loose bagpipe forehead thatchers stood by to bleed the wandering Muslim. I don't know what it means. To catch him as he lost consciousness and fell within the arms of the church. A dragon-headed ship was finally seen under the heap of rimless eyeglasses, and the armada came into view, safe, the lineless hands of the fjord, holding them to the channel, people cheering, and the captain still singing. Sometimes when we're writing these pieces, I'll be sitting there leafing through one of his volumes of Shakespeare and just picking out lines or references. And no matter which direction he goes, I just mark down what comes across my eye. The Oneropolite. Jellyfish forced under the Slate Indian ring of broken monuments escape into the shallows, dancing like bright flowers in the ether's brine. The eyes of March are come. Aye, Caesar, but not gone. Salt crust on the marble heads, some upright in boxes at the front of the theater. Disembodied Italian-speaking trumpets shout messages of white, languorous maidens, swiftly moving, destroying cities and oath swearers. Go bid the priests do present sacrifice, and bring me their opinions of success. I will, my lord. The lights return merited 3 gray eyes, cloudless pools ringed by bracken and poppies. Well, I've gotten through my poems rather quickly, so you're all going to have an added treat, and I'm going to read a small section of a story that we were writing when I moved, which I'm currently finishing. It's about a young medical student who visits the great Dr. Jabin, who is a teratologist and virologist. And he's learning from the aged master. Gray gulls were massed in the tidal inlet. The sun was hazy over a beached white porpoise to my left as I approached the birds. Jabin and Gross were several yards behind, engrossed in a discussion of endocrinology. The birds rose in a cluster as I approached and then settled, most of them on the far side of the dead cetacean. I turned around and continued walking, joining in the conversation. "Hey, Dr. Gross, what ultra disorder do you think caused the singular malformations in the ungodly form of one W.T. Sapp?" The icy water ran over my gangrenous feet as I continued walking across the stream. The gulls had dwindled into the magenta lines of the horizon, above the restless breakers in the distance by now. Dr. Gross raised his hand and touched the porpoise. Raising his Jurassic head, looking down through his pearl-rimmed half glasses, he said, "While in El Salvador some 20 years ago now, I chanced to see the remains of a creature very like this one. I would even say that it was a day very much like this one, with the same high cumulus clouds and a strong breeze from the south." He seemingly had not heard my question about the unfortunate Mr. Sapp. Jabin appeared to be occupied with a troublesome hangnail on his left index finger. Bruce continued, "And such things do not bode well for the land. What think you, Jabin?" "This is very reminiscent of my time in the Caucasus in 1944. As the great shadow passed over the land, unheard of prodigies occurred. Many mutes wandered through the towns, the domes of the churches were burning, and monsters were born." As the elder doctor, looking skyward through his monocle, continued speaking, his words were lost in the seething of the waves. I shouted, "Is the skin slipping on that porpoise?" Gross replied, "Good Lord, man, you needn't shout. The development of skin slip is only to be expected in this corpulent husk. Consider the temperature here and the high bacterial level in seawater. When I was studying pathology in Munich, I interrupted, 'I think the corpse is going to burst. Run for it.'" Gross must have concurred, for he went into action at once, and I caught Jabin's shirt sleeve and pulled him after me. It was not until we had nearly reached the summit of the ragged sandstone hill, choked with fossil shellfish, snails, and rather large bones, to which I had led the two doctors, that the event took place. As the men, breathing loudly, sat down by my side on the barren rocks, I looked over the remote beach and the rapidly darkening ocean, and there, not far from that swift, sea-flowing stream, a formless shape, blue and phosphorescent, expanded all at once, swelling to 2 or 3 times its former size. The expansion seemed to continue indefinitely, the shock wave blending into the deepening crimson currents of the western sky. As the report reached us, I witnessed the settling of the remnants of the beast, shards of skin and fat scattering in a yard-wide oval pattern around the center. And there the rapish skeleton and the most tenacious fractured gore remained, possibly the most beautiful sight in the world, yet tainted by the occult qualities of my prejudiced perceptions. The birds appeared as from the naked ether and proceeded to explore the scattered bounty. We sat motionless for several minutes. It was Gross who finally broke the silence. "It's interesting, but this is exactly as it happened on that beach at Utopica those many years ago." We stood at once, and Gross and Jabin started forward toward the awesome wreck. I took my leave from them and walked back slowly toward the novitiate, stupefied and without any new understanding. I've almost come to the end of my presentation. I have one more poem. It's about someone we all knew and loved, who passed away some months ago. Mr. Green Jeans died today. It is not all that common. Sometimes he dies on every other day. They hung up his jeans on a pole above the Wailing Wall, a sign that the millennium is approaching. While sitting in a cafe in Burlington, Iowa, the captain in the long vacant corner, shaking behind an overstuffed owl mask. If he can handle it, we can handle it. Few people knew of his secret life, years spent in the slums of Montevideo, living on cores in the arms of children. On one occasion, he had dropped a piece of gold into the blistered hand of an architect. But who would not want to go the way of Mr. Green Jeans? Walking away like a briskly trotting, white-footed cat into the forested slopes that he loved, he opened his kimono above the springs and was never seen again. Thank you.
Well, don't let the size of the basket deceive you. We want everyone to pay their bills and make a generous giveaway. After that, we'd like you to dig deep into your heart. And I'm going to pass this basket around. If you could put a little money in here, and we can keep the Go-Go reading series going. This is the exquisite course. I'm going to leave it for you. I don't know how you're but first we're going to take a little break. And during the break, I'll begin with violent music. After about a 5-minute break, then we'll have Denise Dumars read.